Hi, this is Krista Moore, and welcome to the Krista Moore Show. This show is brought to you as a way to inspire and encourage you to continue to develop your passion, your purpose, so that you can soar in your life and in your career and in your relationships. Now, I have a really special guest today, and every time I prepare to say that, I think, I always say that, but this is different for me today. Um, a friend of mine that I've interviewed twice on the show. This is her third time, and no one's ever been on the show three times, but she has such a strong, powerful message that I want all of you to hear. And in addition to that, she's celebrating this week because she has become #1 bestseller on Amazon in her category, and she is living her purpose and living her life as she and God have intended it to be. So I'm thrilled to invite you today to join my conversation. And I'm with Helen Moses, and she is the author of Voice Unleashed, as well as the founder of her own company. So Helen, are you there?
I'm here. Thanks for having me, Krista.
So the book, Voice Unleashed, is speaking up with faith and courage. That's kind of the tagline there.
Yes.
And when I'm reading that, I'm thinking, wonder what this is all about. Unleashing a voice and being able to speak up with faith and courage. Love the title, love the cover. I want our guest today to learn more about it and really understand why you wrote it and what are some things that they can gain or have impact from reading it and how they can apply it to their own life. So I'm hoping we have a great conversation around that today. And I just want to welcome you as my guest.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled and I'm honored to be here for the third time. It is always a wonderful conversation.
That's great. So I'm not even sure where to begin. Let me go ahead and set the stage here.
Okay.
I knew that you were publishing this book. We had talked about it in our last interview. Mm-hmm. And I was on a Facebook group that you had gotten together to help promote the book when it came out. I wasn't able to be at the launch, the virtual launch, because I was on vacation. And then I started seeing you rising in the charts. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got to get this book. I grabbed it on my Kindle and I have highlights everywhere. And I finished reading it this morning because I wanted to have it done, before I interview you. Chapter 3, I'm sobbing. I'm flying through chapter 5 and chapter 6. And then I'm reading all these things about purpose and passion and really turning that light on. And then I'm seeing this little light of mine and that's just my favorite song in the whole world. It's my theme song. So I was just totally overwhelmed this morning. I was meant to finish that book today before speaking with you. And I just want to tell you that you're a fabulous writer.
Oh, thank you.
So let's dive into the book.
Okay.
And why? Why did you write it?
I wrote it, and I think it actually goes back. Well, I always thought that my first book would be a business-related book. I'm a voice coach, so how to make your voice mean business, which is one of my taglines. But when you talked about chapter 3, that's the chapter on clutter. And 4+ years ago, beginning of 2016, I was overcome with clutter, the whole house, not just the house, but my mental state. Everything was just so much. And I hired Barbara Hemphill, and she's talked about in the book quite a bit, to come and see my house and see if we could do something about it. And that's really where the desire to write this book began. She was looking around my house and she said something like, do you know how many people are living just like you are right now? And if you were able to share your story of how you overcame this, how many people you could help? And I, of course, want to help people. That's where my heart is. So that was the first inkling of this book. And it was going to be a book about releasing the clutter so that my voice could shine kind of effect. And then it evolved into finding my voice, finding my value, and these systems and approaches that came to me as I was writing the book that I can apply and I can teach others to apply. They all came in the process. And then finally, that last chapter on purpose, I think was really the culmination of the whole journey.
And the timing of everything, right? 2020 and what's happening with, as I'm reading your last chapter, I'm thinking, where's the next book? I want to read more, because she's got another purpose here to continue being vocal and being able, and you say it like here. Above all, I believe my best purpose for them is to model in my life what I coach others to do for themselves, showing up and speaking up in congruence with the actions I choose to take. You're referring to your children, you're referring to others, but it's different. It's about living purposefully and speaking out with faith, with courage, not holding that voice back, and speaking out on injustices.
Yes.
And that's all a timing thing. I mean, and it was right when you were writing the book.
Yes, the timing is divine. I mean, it's just divine. And I even thought the book was close to what I thought was close to being finished back around February, March. And then COVID hit, and I'm like, well, it's not the time to release the book. And then I even thought, how is this going to even be relevant? Because COVID is changing everything. And I just held faith, I held faith that this was right. And my writing coach was along with me on this journey saying the time is coming. And then the timing, we just knew it was like September. We was like, it's September is the right time.
Yeah.
So,
and you know what, we have a similar belief in that we are born with God-given gifts, and it's our responsibility to kind of discover what they are and make sure that we give them back to the world. And one of the things that you wrote that I'm going to go ahead and quote from the book is, I believe my overall purpose is a divine calling to bring more peace and understanding to this divided world through heart-based communications.
Yeah.
That paragraph in itself is so explicit in what you learned about yourself through the journey of writing the book.
Yeah.
It's crazy. You say here, I have thought a lot about my purpose and how to live it out loud. Tell me more about that.
Well, I hadn't really thought a lot about my purpose before this book. And I talk in the book about my father, how he thought he would equate the words purpose and passion as the same thing. And he was frustrated because he didn't feel like he had this one main passion or this one main purpose. And at that time, I thought, well, we all have to have this one main thing. And I kind of just put that to the side because I couldn't think what my one main thing was. Mm-hmm. But the learning about my purpose in this journey, I was like, oh, I really do have a purpose. And it just kind of showed up. Oh, this is why I'm here. And I talk about this umbrella purpose, that I think we can have one kind of overarching purpose, but there's so many different ribs, if you will, under the umbrella. We have purposes in our different roles. We have purposes in our different roles in our life. Like I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a sister, I'm a daughter, I'm a coach, I am an author. I have a voice in many different areas. And,
I was comforted when I was reading that story about your discovery of the umbrella, because I think there's so many people that are trying to figure out, why am I here? What do I need to do next? Why am I stuck? Trying to figure out what's my purpose. And I'm a big proponent of it, right? Because I know that once you figure that out, you're going to live with more meaning, and you're going to be shining your light on the world in a way that's meant to be. And it's a wonderful feeling. And I want everyone to feel that way. That's what I the tagline for my book and my next book and my whole company is to soar with passion and purpose.
Love
But what
it.
I loved about the umbrella is it was comforting. It's like, oh, wait, there isn't one. There's many. And that's okay.
Yes. Yes.
Now, one of the things that you talk about too, which I really resonated with was, and here's 5 steps. I think it's the 5 P's or something,
I
right?
call it the 5 P's of purpose. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So,
that came to me in the process of writing the book.
and that's what I find really fascinating. It's, people will, I'll give you an example of myself. So I wrote a book. It was a business book. It took me 10 years to write. I'm glad I finally got it published. But I was writing what I had been teaching and training and talking about for years. So I'm just getting it out there. Your journey of writing this book was your own process of discovering what you're meant to be doing and what your purpose is. That's what I read.
That's true. That is true. It all came out of this. So much was born with this book. So much was born
So,
at the same time.
and the other, let's just go through the 5 real quick.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I wrote down.
I want people to know that if they purchase the book, that they can actually, have a methodology or a system for helping their own self discover.
Yeah. So I break it down, and this came to me as I'm thinking, well, how did here I am. I finally feel like I know what my purpose is. How did I get here?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where these 5 P's came from. Of course, I love alliteration as a person who's a lover of language. So that's why they're all P's. So the first one is path. Consider the path that led you from where you were to where you are. And there's a lot of clues about our purpose on our path.
Yeah, I'm going to add to that if you.
Okay. Yeah.
And a lot of the exercises that we do with discovering passion and purpose is very similar. It's going backwards to move forward. Back and seeing your life journey and reflecting on when you were 10 and what you were doing, and looking at your lifeline, your highs and lows. So it's very, very similar. And then next is
priorities. Yeah. What are your priorities? Like your values. I talk about what you value a lot, and valuing yourself. So one of your priorities, I hope, is self-care. And that's a purpose that I think we all share, that it's a very important purpose. But what are your priorities? What do you value? What do you put highest in regard in your life?
And I feel like in the book, at the end of each chapter, you have kind of exercises. So it's really a self-help setup. Like when I'm on the page, what are your priorities? There's a great list of reflection questions.
Yep. And then are you ready for the next P? The next P is your positions, which is a P word for the roles that I was talking about before. What do you do in your life? Are you a mother? Are you a daughter? Are you a coach? Are you an employee? Are you a boss? Are you an author? Are you a friend? Are you a pet lover? Whatever. Where are your positions, and which ones do you like the most? Which audiences, whether it's pets or elderly people, which audiences resonate with you the most, speak to you the most, give you the most joy? And those are clues.
Right? And, how are these all connected to be you? It's all a part of who you are.
That's right.
And then passions is a tough one, because you were saying like your father would confuse purpose and passion. I've confused purpose and passion, but there's a distinct difference.
Mm-hmm. There is. I think passion is what happens to us, what we feel and experience when we are actually living out our purpose. And so when I ask the question, what are your passions, then what are the experiences that bring you joy, that make you feel like this is why I was made? What are those passions? And those can lead you to understand what your purpose is.
And also I want to add to that, it doesn't have to be some like this is my passion. I mean, it might be gardening.
Yes.
It might be being alone, walking in the woods on a hike.
Yes.
And
And it might be just a seasonal thing or a day, and a 1 hour. I might have a purpose for this 1 hour. I mean, you could factor that into your life in a different way,
yeah.
and break things down to a multitude of purposes. And I love that we can have a multitude of purposes.
And then I love the last one because it feels actionable.
Mm-hmm.
What is your potential? How can you take this that you've discovered and unleash it, as the title in your book,
Right?
unleash it and really unleash the potential within you.
That's right. And here's where when you're talking about when you mentioned that all the gifts that God gave us, each individually unique set of gifts, this is where our potential lies.
Mm-hmm.
When we are aligned with our purpose, and our potential is greater. It's so much greater than we could ever imagine. And so the potential for what we can do, that only we can do. Krista, you have experiences, values, people in your life, resources, knowledge, personality, gifts, all of the above. Only you have those.
It's that uniqueness. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And only you has the potential to reach what only you can do.
Yeah, and that was really an encouraging part of the book for me, because you talked about we all have this light, within us.
Yeah.
And I think I mentioned at the beginning, you have the words to "This Little Light of Mine," and we're gonna sing that together before.
Okay. Sounds good.
Church camp song. And
we will do it.
There was a time when I first started writing my new book. I would walk into the office singing it. And I'd wake up singing it. So, and I know you have a voice of an angel. So I'm anxious to hear you sing it as well. But that part about flipping the switch, turning the light on. I want to go back into something else that was a learning for me from the book this morning.
Okay.
You talk about a process, kind of a methodology about unleashing your voice, so to speak. And when you're referring to it, there was 3 things. It was, help me remember. I know what to
align, and then abandon, and then amplify.
So align, abandon, and amplify.
Mm-hmm.
Alignment. I don't think I realized how important alignment was, because when we're not aligned with who we are at our core, and if we're being an imposter, or we're not speaking our truth, I mean, all kinds of things can go awry, right? We get physically, mentally, it's just all bad. So that alignment piece, I didn't realize maybe how important that was in being able to speak out, as you say, with truth and courage and faith. Yeah,
it's critical. It's critical.
That second one with abandonment, I didn't quite get. I'm like, And you gave some great stories. Why don't you share a couple examples of what you did for abandonment to kind of, release some of that weight and just extra burden, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, the biggest example of that I have, partly in the clutter thing, I would abandon things that no longer served me. So that's one example of how to abandon, and then suddenly things are amplified, and we'll talk about amplify in a minute. But the biggest example that I have is a pretty long story in one of the chapters about how I ended up abandoning Toastmasters. Mm-hmm. And let me just say that I still love Toastmasters. It's a wonderful organization, Toastmasters International, and I was involved in it for 6 years, very, very involved in it. So much so, everyone just associated me with Toastmasters. Locally, I was known as the Toastmasters lady. Yeah. So, and what I think I liked about it so much initially was it started feeding this need that I had to validate my value. And so I was kind of addicted to people clapping for me when I would have a speech, and I was addicted to that. And then I wanted to become in the leadership arena in Toastmasters. I was just totally in, and I got to a point where it was taking up easily 10, if not 20 hours a week of non-paid time. And of course, what Toastmasters does, which is a public speaking organization, is aligned with what I do as a professional. But I came to this realization that I needed to take this off my plate. I didn't think I could, because it was defining me.
Defining you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Such
I
a
mean,
big part of your life.
so big. And I'm so big that I actually was intending and had set my mind on becoming the international president of Toastmasters one day. That's how involved I was. And I think, it was a good intention and expectation and goal at the time. But I came to the realization, we talked about alignment. I was out of alignment with with my value, because I was giving away to Toastmasters for free, which
Yeah.
was what I would actually charge other clients for. And so that wasn't helping my business at that point. And it was also my time. I was way out of alignment with my resource of time. And that wasn't good for me. And then the other thing that it did for me is it made me want to be a perfect speaker. And that was not good for aligning with just being real and vulnerable and a genuine human being. So this whole realization came, and I ended up leaving Toastmasters pretty much cold turkey. I found people to replace me in the various leadership roles that I was holding at the time. But I had to go. It was an abandonment. It's not abandon in a negative thing like, oh, they're bad, I have to let them go.
That's why I enjoyed understanding it more in the book, because the word abandonment feels like you're just leaving it behind and someone is hurt by it. And that's not the case.
Yeah.
Abandonment is the need for you to abandon it for your own self and your own
That's
self.
right. That's right.
Yeah. And it was interesting as I was reading that, I personally have been through that step number one with alignment. I let go of my largest client that defined me so that I could be free mentally, physically, spiritually to move forward in a different direction. That was not easy. But as far as abandonment, I did the same thing that you're writing about, which I started a nonprofit 10 years ago, 11 years ago, co-founded it. And I let them know recently that next year I'm not going to be a part of it. And we found a nice home for it and we're transitioning out of that. But I almost feel like the steps that you describe in the book, I've been through 1 and 2. And I really, really resonated with it. And what I loved about it the most is when it came to step number 3, which is, I call it more unleashing than fine, because, okay, now I'm going to amplify my voice. And I'm in a position to do that now because I did step 1 and step 2.
That's right.
And
That's right.
I felt like, okay, I can switch that light up a notch. You talk about shining your light and flipping the switch. And that's what I got out of that part of the book.
I love that.
Very powerful. And I felt like I needed to read it today. It was just part of why I woke up this morning. And we kind of talked about that a little bit before, because I didn't have a guest for today. But you were to be my guest today for all reasons. It's just part of God's plan.
Yeah, I think so.
And even the way that we originally met.
Yeah. Yeah. In the book, I talk about an experience where I was giving a speech and I was wearing leather pants and a badass girl t-shirt. And it was very much a step away from my traditional, typical attire. And people who knew me noticed, but it gave me this boost of confidence. And I talked about using your voice and being authentically you at that time in that speech.
Mhm.
But at the end, I gave away a free coaching session, and it was Krista who won it. And so,
Yeah, and then I had you as my guest a few times, and here we
yeah,
are today.
that's right.
It's a beautiful story. I want to talk about another story in the book that really struck me.
Okay.
And it was at the beginning, and you were talking about your son, Jay, I believe
Hmm.
his name
Hmm.
is, and how you were fearful of talking to him and telling him and speaking to him on things that were in your heart, because you were afraid of his reaction, or I mean, I'm not trying to put word, but I think you used the word, you didn't want to break him.
Yeah.
And so there were things that he needed to hear from you, but you weren't communicating it, and what you did to overcome that. And I had lots of tears during that part as well, because as a mother, I could relate to that, and I can relate to it today. Not just when my kids were going off to school. So tell us what you did to kind of break that barrier.
Well, there came a point where, your kid gets ready to graduate from high school, and you recognize, oh, I'm running out of time. There's so many things that I never told him. And so much of that was because he would just, teenagers are hard to talk to as parents anyway, but it just seemed like I was just kind of a hovering mother. I just wanted to protect him. I didn't want to hurt him. And I really did at some points in his life feel that I would break him. And there was, at some point, there was a vision. Maybe this is even from scripture about letting go, because if I'm holding on, then I'm kind of squelching him. And when I let go, then he's free to connect with God and the universe and his potential. And his voice then has a channel to go out into the world. It dawned on me at one point that I could write these things to him. And so I started writing a journal. It was a small little black book of a different sort, but I wrote to him. I wanted him to have it in my own handwriting. And I just shared things that I had wanted to share that I didn't. And I was able to give that to him, put it in his hands, the day that we moved him into his freshman dorm.
Yeah, and I think you thought he might respond. I think you asked him for a text
I
once.
did. I said, could you just do me a favor? I wrote this in there at the end. And when you get to this page, just text me and let me know you finished it. And in my mind, I'm thinking, maybe 2 weeks. It's a reasonable time for him to do it. But it was 11:30 the
That,
night that I gave it to him
yeah,
that he texted me.
your relationship.
It's good. It's stronger than it ever has been. Um, Conversations with him now are some of my greatest treasures. And I think that my modeling that I trusted him to not break helped him to trust himself that he wouldn't break either. He's really finding his voice. And
Yeah,
as a mother, you can't ask for anything more wonderful than to see that in your own children.
yeah, when our kids are happy.
Yeah.
Um, there's something that I highlighted in the book. If we don't know the right words to say, but we speak with a heartfelt, connecting tone, we invite trust on which we can build a relationship.
Yep.
Beautifully said.
Thank you. That's what the tone, that the love, the love of humanity, the just, even when we don't have the words, if we have that intention to connect and to share love, then the words will come, or they won't, and they won't be necessary. That our hearts can speak to each other sometimes without words.
Mm-hmm. That's a great way to put it. The other thing I want to share with the audience today is something that, again, really connected with me, was a quote that you shared, that you discovered, that for me, when I was reading it, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is it. this is what, purpose and passion really is all about. Would you mind sharing that?
Yeah, sure.
Great. I think you've got it there.
Yeah, I've got it marked here. This quote is
Sure.
from Victor Stretcher,
Mhm.
who is an author that I stumbled upon in my own kind of wandering path in this journey. So here's what he says about purpose. Imagine a drug that was proven to add years to your life, reduce risk of heart attack and stroke, cut your risk of Alzheimer's disease by more than half, help you relax during the day and sleep better at night, double your chances of staying drug and alcohol free after treatment, activate your natural killer cells, diminish your inflammatory cells, increase your good cholesterol, and repair your chromosomes. The pharmaceutical company who made the drug would be worth billions, but it's not a drug, it's purpose, and it's free.
Yeah, I love it. I don't know. I think I shared it with Eddie right away. The other quote that I posted, because I didn't realize when you're reading a book in Kindle, you can create a quote from the book and post it. And I just did that this morning. And this is what it looks like. It's on my Facebook, but I'm going to read it. And this is from Helen Moses' quote. Purpose makes the things we do in life easier. It increases our momentum, motivation, focus, direction, inspiration, and perseverance. It gives us the courage to face our fears and to take the necessary risks. Purpose makes us feel significant, like what we are doing matters and will make a positive difference in people's lives. Quote by Helen Moser, author of Voice Unleashed. Yeah. Hey, I want you to share the cover of your book.
There it is.
I saw the cover. I thought it was beautiful, but I knew there was a story behind it.
Yeah.
And I found the story in the book.
Mm-hmm.
And you really wrote the story well, because you're talking about, and I'll let you tell the story because you could do it so much better. But you were talking about raising your hands and doing praise church music and feeling like you really couldn't do that because it might not be accepted and you might be judged and might even be thrown out of the choir.
Yeah.
And you just did it.
I just did it. I just did it. Yes.
So then I was like, oh my gosh, that's the cover of the book.
It is. It is. That moment was January 9th of 2016. And that was really the beginning of this journey. That was before I did the decluttering. I met Barbara like the following month, and we got started within a few weeks of meeting each other. So that experience that is on the cover, I commissioned Dan Campbell, who's a local artist here in the Raleigh area, to paint my experience for me. And he did.
This was before you knew that painting was going to be the cover of your book.
Actually, I kind of knew. It was in the fall of 2017 when I actually commissioned it, because it was such a momentous occasion, and that feeling, that freedom that I experienced in that moment of just letting go, and it didn't matter if they did kick me out of the choir, which of course they weren't going to do, but it didn't matter anymore. I tasted that freedom, and it was so incredible, something I had not experienced. I'm getting chills now just remembering it. So that was January of 2016 when it happened, and it was fall, like August, September of 2017 when I commissioned him to paint this experience. And I told him about it, and he did it. And at the time I said, because I had started writing the book after Barbara gave me the idea, and I said, I think it needs to be the cover of my book. So the painting itself is named Unleashed, and then it's now used as the cover for Voice Unleashed.
Absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And really, when I now know the story behind it, it makes it even better.
Yeah.
So I do want to end our interview.
Okay.
On a couple of things, couple of notes. Thank you for writing this book. The impact that just reading it this morning has had on me is significant, and I encourage others to read it as well. We're going to be doing some things together. We were talking about a virtual retreat where I could use a lot of your talent and your voice to help a group of executive women find their voice and live with more purpose and passion. So I'm hoping to work together on that, more to follow. But I want to close with singing.
All right.
Okay. And I do not, my mother was the singer, and my brother is a singer in a rock band. And I can't sing, what is it, in a bucket or whatever.
Well, we're going to sing together. Are we going to sing both verses?
No, we'll
or just the first one.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Ready? Okay.
You start.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Thank you for sharing that with me. I love it. And we are letting the light shine, both of us. I think we're at a wonderful time in our lives to be able to unleash that that voice within us, right?
Yes, 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 absolutely.
Awesome. Great to talk with you, as always, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Likewise, Krista. Thank you so much for today. It was meant to be.
Take care.
All right, bye.